It's time for the CBC News Night. This time check is brought to you by Fruiter. The time is now 7 p.m.
Good evening, I'm Lisa Lord, and in our top stories, the Senate in silent tribute to the former Prime Minister of Barbados, the late Professor the Right Honourable Owen Arthur. Many positives expected from the Integrity in Public Life legislation. Tourism authorities are indicating strong booking patterns out of the United Kingdom for the region. And in sports, the windy skipper calls on the ICC to review their revenue distribution laws.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC News Night, starting now.
Well, the Senate this morning observed a period of silence at the start of the 51st session in honor of former Prime Minister Professor the Right Honourable Owen Arthur. At the beginning of his political career, Mr. Arthur served in the upper house. Now, following the silence, the session commenced with a reflection from Foreign Affairs Minister Senator Dr. Jerome Walsh. He then led off debate on the Integrity in Public Life bill. According to him, the legislation was long in coming as it was in the works since the 1980s. But he contended that there are many positives that will stem from the legislation.
The bill will establish a regime, including an integrity commission, to promote the integrity of persons in public life and strengthen measures for the prevention, detection, investigation, and prosecution of acts of corruption. And that is just an extra in terms of the object. This bill will help to create the milieu for us in terms of bringing greater transparency and good governance to Barbados. And indeed, though persons may have issues in terms of their assets and privilege and privacy, it will indeed help persons in terms of protection of their reputations.
And Opposition Senator Casper Franklin called for senior public officers to be exempted from the legislation. He argued that there are measures already in place to deal with their misconduct.
If you are leaving out judges, leave out people who are junior to them like permanent secretaries, leave out deputy permanent secretaries and heads of departments. Because, as I said, there's already mechanisms in place for dealing with them. Now let me stick to the politicians in this act, because we want to make sure that the politicians are above board.
Well, in his contribution, Deputy President of the Upper Chamber, Rudolph Greenwich, said the legislation will send a strong message that government is serious about stamping out corruption in high places. He believes the legislation will ensure those elected cannot acquire wealth dishonestly.
This is a way of making sure that you did not get rich off the government. That is that you got into politics 5 years ago, and at that time you had a mere $5,000 in the bank, but now at the end of your first term, you have $5 million on the bank. We are indeed trying to stamp out things such as this.
Well, as government works to move people from standing in line to clicking online, efforts are ongoing to ensure no Barbadian is left behind. Minister of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, Senator Kay McConney, says there are some Barbadians who are not yet comfortable with or know how to use technology. Senator McConney, who is also the Barbados Labour Party's chairman, was speaking at a St. George North branch meeting at the Valley Resource Centre in the Glebe. Now, many technology-based initiatives are on the cards, including a switch to online payments of some national insurance scheme benefits, and Senator McConney says digital ambassadors have been deployed.
We deployed over 20 digital ambassadors to NIS building, and we helped over 400 persons who were there to sign up for the direct payment into their bank accounts or their credit union accounts. In other words, you no longer have to go down to NIS, stand up in those lines, wait for hours, explain yourself 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and all of the other service issues that Barbadians have been complaining about. NIS is now seeking, certainly from a payments perspective, to make that easier.
Well, Senator McConney says the digital ambassadors will play a critical role going forward and has assured the public that their privacy is protected.
We have put the digital ambassadors out there. They have signed non-disclosure agreements and they have been vetted before. They also have their own Digital Ambassadors Council, and they police their own. And there is a zero tolerance for indiscipline within the group.
Well, Barbados and the Caribbean have done a remarkable job of containing the COVID-19 pandemic, and this is according to the chairman of the University of the West Indies COVID-19 Task Force, Professor Clive Landis. He says with 80,000 cases and just 1,500 deaths, this is an exceptional achievement. Professor Landis provided the update during the Central Bank of Barbados 2020 Economic Forum, which focused on the topic reviving Caribbean tourism last night.
Most of the cases have been in the Dominican Republic, which had 65,000 cases. So that means the rest of the Caribbean, which is a region of roughly 27 million people, has had only 15,000 cases and 500 deaths. And, you know, this level of containment is really exceptional. And the university has actually published on this in peer-reviewed journals. So in Lancet Global Health, we've written about this because people are really, they want to know how it was achieved.
Well, Professor Landis says that the success was achieved by doing the basics well.
So our testing was really excellent right from the word go. We've never had virology testing like this available to us in the Caribbean. A dozen or more islands were trained by the Pan American Health Organization. They had the gold standard PCR test. The quality of the test has been good and the speed of the results. So typically we would be generating results within 24 hours. And so that allows you to do the contact tracing before a case, a suspected case, before he's identified, she's identified, has been able to transmit it. So we've been able to do testing, contact tracing, isolation and quarantining. We're doing that well. And we also locked down early, so we were able to compare how the Caribbean locked down compared to other countries around the world. And by and large, most Caribbean countries locked down before the first deaths.
Well, some good COVID-19 news tonight. One person left the isolation facility at Harrison Point today after recovering from the coronavirus. Additionally, there were no new positive tests among the 130 conducted by the Basto Santos Public Health Lab yesterday. The numbers in isolation, therefore, have dropped to 8, and the number of recoveries increased to 95. Barbados has recorded 110 confirmed cases of COVID-19 since March the 16th, and 7 people have died. The Public Health Lab has now conducted 10,771 tests. Well, despite the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, the National HIV/AIDS Commission has been utilizing some creative methods to fulfill one of its mandates of building community partnerships. The Commission collaborated with the Men's Health Group at the Eunice Gibson Polyclinic in Warrens to stage a food drive there. Now, over the 2-day period, visitors to the clinic received food hampers consisting of an assortment of items. Speaking yesterday at the start of the drive, the Commission's behavior change specialist, Cecilia Murray, said it also contained an educational component.
We don't only want to tell them about what to eat, but we want to show them and give them, so that this will be the first stage in beginning to plan healthy menus so that we will have a healthier society. This is just one of the initiatives that we have, partnering with the National HIV/AIDS Commission and the Eunice Gibson Polyclinic.
And the clinic's medical officer of health, Dr. Elizabeth Mandeville, spoke of the Men's Health Group's role in that venture.
The Men's Health Group at the Eunice Gibson Polyclinic, they are giving back to the community. They have acquired some donations from various members from the public and also the private sector, and they have decided that since they weren't having the Men's Health Group due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they still wanted to give back to the community. They still wanted to find out what the community members needed, and today is that day that we're doing the presentation to those members in the community.
Well, greater accountability within the medical profession will be one of the key objectives for the new executive of the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners, or BAMP. President Dr. Linda Williams was a guest on CBC TV8's Morning Barbados. She expressed a desire for the medical profession to be better at self-policing.
We teach ethics in our continuing medical education, have done for years, but we really want to work with the Medical Council, which is that arm appointed by government to oversee the medical profession. We want to insist on standards for our profession and to really train the young doctors from an early age in what it means to be a doctor. And that's really through mentorship, and we can only get that kind of mentorship when we come together and collaborate and work together for the common good.
Well, Dr. Williams says the association currently does a lot of work behind the scenes, but it also wants to do more public education and community outreach.
The advocacy is really important to me. So you're going to hear more from BAMP on issues like, well, not just COVID-19, but childhood obesity, NCDs, mental health, all the things that we really need to push for to improve the health of this nation. And I think we're on the right path, but we have a long way to go to improving that link with the public.
Well, Barbados entered a third day of national mourning today, and the tributes continue to pour in for former Barbados Prime Minister Professor the Right Honourable Owen Arthur. The Chairman, Board of Directors, the Secretariat and the membership of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association have conveyed their sympathy on his passing. The BHTA's Chief Executive Officer, Senator Rudy Grant, reflected on the late Prime Minister's contribution.
No stranger to the BHTA, Professor Arthur attended several of our meetings over the years and shared his vision for the tourism industry and his commitment to its success. During these sessions, he offered his views on a number of topics, ranging from the importance of marketing, diversification of the tourism product, facilitating investment, providing the correct legislative framework, and creating the right staycation program. His invaluable contribution to our country, and indeed the entire Caribbean, will not be easily forgotten. We have truly lost one of the most exceptional leaders of this era, a respected politician whose passion for his people and his country was immeasurable.
Well, he adds that the late Prime Minister has left a lasting impression on Barbados and the region.
As Barbados' longest-serving Prime Minister and a champion for Caribbean integration and unity, he leaves a legacy that will be an inspiration for generations to come. On behalf of the BHTA and on my own behalf, I extend sincere condolences to his wife Julie, his daughters Sabrina and Leah, siblings, relatives, and friends. May you be comforted by the outpouring of love and gratitude to this distinguished son of the soil, to whom Barbadians must be eternally grateful for his determination, commitment, and fortitude in creating a better Barbados. May he rest in peace.
Well, the Congress of Trade Unions and Staff Associations of Barbados, or CTUSAB, is also joining with the nation in paying tribute to the life and memory of the late former Prime Minister. General Secretary Dennis DePisa says the labor movement benefited from Professor Arthur's progressive thinking and insightfulness.
The labor movement of Barbados take pride in recognizing the fact that the economic and social policies he pursued while he served as Prime Minister between 1994 and 2008 were intended to improve the social and economic well-being of working class people. As the architect of the policy of inclusion, he took a decisive step into practice to ensure the participation of the best talents available and to permit the engagement of all stakeholders in the government's process. Through his understanding and appreciation for inclusiveness in the decision-making process, he strongly supported the development of a social partnership mechanism, which has now cemented itself as part of the government's model of Barbados.
Well, after working extensively with Professor Arthur, Barbados' permanent representative to the United Nations and other national organizations at Geneva, Chad Blackmon, has also remembered him in tribute. He says Professor Arthur, along with his parents and Prime Minister Mia Amor Motley, helped to shape him into the man he is today.
I shall always remember his very clear view that one should never lose a sense of one's own unimportance, a phrase and ethos which I live by until this day. And lastly, he encourages all to see the world as our playground and never be confined by a small size and small thinking. And the phrase which best encapsulates this was that one should never allow oneself to be limited by one's own limitations.
And Ambassador Blackmon remembers their last encounter.
As he came to Geneva, to the United Nations, to deliver a high-level address to the ambassadors of the G77 and China on the way forward for UNCTAD and the multilateral system. Whilst there, he reminded me of the work that he was able to undertake in St. Peter as its MP, and the role that my grandfather and his predecessor, former MP for St. Peter Burden Hines, played in shaping his view on representation and what it means for the people of St. Peter, the people he wanted to serve. I truly want to say that may God be with his daughters, Sabrina and Leah, and his wife and his wider family at this time.
Well, the Barbados Accreditation Council has also paid glowing tribute to former Prime Minister Arthur. The council's new executive director, Lisa Gale, says that he was instrumental in the development of what is now known as the BAC.
We at the Barbados Accreditation Council regret the passing of the late Honourable Owen Seymour Arthur. As we recognize his contribution to education and to regional integration movement, we credit his visionary leadership, which saw the establishment of both the Barbados Accreditation Council Act 2004 and the Caribbean Community Movement of Skills Nationals Act 2004. Reflective of his commitment to quality, former Prime Minister Arthur vested the responsibility of managing the movement of the Caribbean Skills National Portfolio to the BAC, the National Quality Assurance Agency. In his portfolio as lead Prime Minister for the Single Market and Economy, Arthur believed that this process should be handled by a competent authority. This was part of his undying work in championing the development of the region through his advocacy of the CSME.
Well, Ms. Gale adds that numerous examples of the lasting impact of Mr. Arthur's leadership and vision can be seen not only in Barbados but throughout the Caribbean.
As I reflect, I laud Arthur's leadership, his commitment to regionalism, and his astute mind, which he dedicated to the advancement of growth and development for not only Barbados, but also to the CARICOM grouping at a crucial stage of its post-independence history. He contributed to trade, economic, and social policies, which still have their imprint today. On behalf of the board and the staff of the BAC, I extend heartfelt condolences to his family and his loved ones. He will surely be missed.
Well, still to come, news from across the region, but first, this tip from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
It is advisable for homeowners to protect their investment by effecting appropriate home insurance coverage during the hurricane season. Cooperators General Insurance, helping you to be prepared this hurricane season.
Regional news now. In Guyana, a new report has revealed that in the first 7 months of this year, 43 victims of human trafficking were identified. The findings have been revealed by the Trafficking in Persons Unit of the Social Protection Ministry. And we hear now from Guyana News Source.
In a statement, the Trafficking in Persons Unit explained that it received a total of 22 cases of suspected trafficking, and 8 of those cases were confirmed. The majority of the trafficking victims are women, and it is suspected that they are from neighboring Venezuela. Coordinator of the Trafficking in Persons Unit, Tanisha Williams-Corbin, said human trafficking remains a problem in Guyana, although the country has been doing better at addressing suspected cases. She said victims of human trafficking are exploited and their basic human rights violated. The common forms prevalent in Guyana are forced labor, sexual exploitation, and domestic servitude. She added that it is important to engage the community as victims often do not self-identify. Most of the victims never come forward to the authorities, she said. Members of the public are being asked to report any suspicious activities to the Trafficking in Persons 24-hour hotline through telephone numbers 227-4083 or 623-5030. Guyana will be joining the rest of the world in observing the Day Against Trafficking in Persons on the 30th of July. A few weeks ago, it was announced that Guyana continues to rank at Tier 1 in the U.S. State Department report on trafficking in persons.
Over in the Bahamas, bus drivers and their passengers were caught by surprise after they discovered they were not allowed to operate under the new COVID-19 emergency orders. We get more now in our news.
Disrespectful is how bus drivers are describing that emergency powers order handed down from the competent authority last night, informing them that they are no longer allowed to operate. They are calling on government to consult with them before decisions like these are made that affect their livelihood.
It was a total disrespect to the bus drivers and to our traveling public.
Colbrook says shortly before 7 a.m., bus drivers on Carmichael Road were stopped by police officers who forced patrons off of buses, leaving some stranded. Route 16A bus driver Cedric Poitier said the move came as a shock to him, who has an 11-year-old daughter and a wife to support.
Boy, it's difficult, you know. I just got to leave it up to God that He's going to provide, you know, because at the end of the day, the only thing you can do is just take it as it comes, you know, and make the best of it. Rather than looking at the glasses half empty, I'm looking at it half full.
Back in March, it was a similar scene as buses were stopped on their routes and passengers were left to find other means of transportation. Colbrook said it left them in disarray.
It has been over 4 months that we have worked properly on the road. It was a tough going from July to this time, and we were left right now in a total disarray because the Prime Minister did not properly transmitted his how should I say his communication towards the drivers.
The most recent COVID-19 emergency orders reads, no person shall offer for hire or seek to travel on any public bus transportation. Colbrook slammed government's lack of consultation.
That is just total disrespectful because the Prime Minister has the union's numbers. The Prime Minister should have said, let's call and give these drivers time and traveling public time to make adjustments and provisions.